With E3 2016 going on this week and all the press conferences and all the new games, my attention has been focused solely on trying to just take it all in, but immediately, one particular trailer during the course of Sony's press conference grabbed my attention, and they immediately announced a demo would be available right away for this particular game. As many of you guys may know, I am a huge Resident Evil fan, and one that is dedicated to the series, even though a lot of the games, especially in recent years, have not quite met my expectations. But I still will absolutely play anything with the Resident Evil name just to say that at least I gave it a try. They started off with this first-person perspective horror game that was being dubbed with VR and all that, which immediately I'm still very iffy on it, not just due to its nature, but also just due to the price of the device itself, which was revealed during the course of Sony's press conference. So I'm a little intrigued to get it, but I still think it's quite expensive and still very experimental. But this game would be one of the reasons to definitely try it out. Thankfully, though, it ended up not requiring VR in order to play the game itself, so that's one of the pluses that was later revealed. But first off, they showed this VR trailer, it's first-person perspective, and at the end of this horror trailer, they reveal that it is Resident Evil 7. Which we had expected and rumored for a bit, but they fully acknowledged that yes, this is Resident Evil 7, which is going in a completely different direction than I think almost anyone ended up expecting. And now I've stayed up all night waiting for the demo to finally hit the PlayStation Network. It actually hit in Japan, Australia, and Europe, and then finally hit for the North American market. And after struggling to download, I guess with so many people also trying to get a hold of it, and internet connection and all, I was finally able to get it, and I played through the demo actually a couple of times now, and I just want to kind of give my initial reaction here as you're seeing the footage of my playthrough through this Resident Evil 7 demo. Immediately, the perspective of being a PT knockoff, clone, ripoff, whatever you want to say, definitely comes to mind. It felt like PT, not only from the trailer, but initially. You are in that first-person perspective, which apparently is how the game is going to be, which is a huge departure for Resident Evil. Resident Evil purist, which I used to consider myself a complete Resident Evil purist, but over the years I've recognized that even with some of the changes, I end up liking some of the games, and other ones I ended up not liking. I like Resident Evil, I love Resident Evil 4, I dealt with Resident Evil 5, I can't stand 6, I liked Revelations and some of the things they went back to that, and that was kind of a cross between the newer Resident Evils and the classic Resident Evils, which is actually something I was expecting with Resident Evil 7 when they said they were going to go back to their roots. However, they didn't quite go back to their roots. They went back to horror, that is for sure. This is much more horror-based than we've seen in recent Resident Evil games, but it is a first-person perspective that clearly has been influenced by the likes of PT, and then the recent influx of first-person perspective horror games like Outlast, and then the recently released Layers of Fear, and then also the canceled Allison Road, which was going to kind of be the successor to PT by a completely different team. So this fills in that gap, and playing through this trailer, you're in a dilapidated house, clearly out in the country, and you're walking through, and there's not a whole lot to interact with. I was actually surprised that there wasn't more jump scares or more just elements to this overall demo. It is a very, very short experience, being only currently available for PlayStation 4 users and PlayStation Plus members. That's the only way you're able to get it. Not only do you have to have a PS4, but you also have to be a Plus member, with no word yet when or if the demo will be released for PC, Xbox One, but the game is coming out for those systems down the road. I will say right away, though, it's not worth your time to go out and get a PlayStation or even borrow a friend's at this point in order to see it. There's plenty of great playthroughs, I'm sure, online already, and probably people streaming it for the next little while, so check it it out through that or watch the initial trailer that Capcom put out during Sony's press conference, you'll get pretty much the gist of what you end up getting to do here. There isn't much more to it than what you saw in that trailer, except you get to actually move around the environment. It was very pretty. I don't think it was as pretty as the PT demo from playing through this. It is some nice effects of just the rotting food and the just clutter that's everywhere, but overall there wasn't a ton here. You're able to find a couple of items and interact with them. There's going to be some slight spoilers throughout the course of this, but some of this was actually also revealed in the trailer, so it's not going too far away from that. But in case you want to play it for yourself, or you haven't watched it all the way through yet, there will be some slight spoilers from this point on in the video. But there's a few things you can interact with. You can find a VHS tape, and you put that in, and actually allows you to watch a VHS tape, but you're actually in control. It's moments that happen prior to the events that you start off the demo having control of your character. We assume it's the same character you're controlling in that's the one you're controlling in the VHS, but definitely not shown, and being first-person perspective, you don't really know if that's the case. You end up watching the VHS, and it actually reveals a hidden passage that you then get control of your character, and you can go through this hidden passage. You end up finding out some stuff that ends up happening to the other people that go into the house with you, and then the tape abruptly ends, and then you're back control of the house before watching the VHS. And at that point, you can go and explore that passageway where you're going to end up finding a key, and then you'll try to escape going through the exit, the back door, in which case you are abruptly caught, and thus the demo ends, and you see a short clip. Interestingly enough, though, there is multiple endings to this demo already, so it's a very PT feel. I was one of the ones, like many, during the initial release period for PT that spent hours and hours staying up late nights into the early morning playing through PT's demo over and over again to discover every single little tiny secret, and definitely some of that feeling has come back with this. There's some items that people haven't figured out, at least at the recording of this, what they do and what they can interact with. There's multiple endings. There was a phone call showed in the trailer, and you can actually discover that phone by actually finding a fuse, and you can only find the fuse by going through the hidden passage that wouldn't have been revealed until after you watched the VHS tape. Of course, you probably could have found it on your first playthrough anyway, if you looked around and actually were able to find the lever to pull for it, which I won't spoil where it is if you haven't played it yourself. But then you go into that passage, there's different items there. Initially at the end, there's the key if you watch the VHS tape, but if you don't watch the VHS tape, there is no key, and instead it is a fuse, which goes into a fuse box and allows you to control a staircase up in the attic that takes you up to another part, I guess higher up attic or upper floor or whatever it may be, in which case there's a phone, and you can actually pick up the phone, and which will lead to another ending. But there's multiple different phone calls you can get, and with a bunch of different items, and people haven't figured out quite exactly what happens, and the whole thing of using the VHS tape that you're kind of going into the past, and you can thus change or interact with some things in that end up affecting the game that you're currently actually still playing through in the house when the VHS tape ends. There's some intrigue. There's also some ghost and other stuff that goes on that's kind of random, and people haven't figured out what quite is going on. But overall, this is a completely different experience than I was expecting from Resident Evil 7. But even as an old school Resident Evil fan, I am not gonna completely dismiss it and throw it away and say that this is awful just because it is different. Resident Evil 4 was very different. They've taken chances in the past, some have paid off and some haven't. Yes, I would love a classic Resident Evil, and I'm still hoping the Resident Evil 2 remake that we're supposed to also be getting will be an exact remake, just with modern graphics and a modern look, so at least we'll have that same style of old school gameplay with that, but we haven't had anything quite revealed yet for that. But either way, I've gone for too many years now without a classic Resident Evil. I've given up on the entire concept of a classic Resident Evil game, and I just try to sometimes enjoy these Resident Evil games for what they end up being. Revelations and Revelations 2 I didn't mind as much. I hated 6, but I'm going to be giving this a shot. Will I do it with the VR? That will all depend, of course, if I'm willing to pony up $400 for the PlayStation VR, which this is one of, if not the main reason I would even be interested in it, and I do wonder how VR, quality VR would be with a quality horror game, not just a tech demo or a Slender Man knockoff or something like that. What can truly be done with VR and with horror and that whole perspective, because I've always said horror video games can do so much more than what a horror movie can do, as I am a fan of the horror genre overall, because you're forced to actually move the character and move the story forward. You can't just close your eyes and the movie keeps playing, or, you know, even with a book, you read the words, but not, you know, you're not forced to actually move a character or actually interact with objects or fight anything. So adding VR to the mix, I think horror is one of the few genres that will be greatly amplified, potentially, by VR technology once that kind of gets fully going. But if this is the game that's going to do it, I of course have no idea. No familiar characters whatsoever are shown in this demo. It is completely unlike anything we've seen really from Resident Evil at all. There is no monsters, no sign of zombies, no sign of other things. We don't know if it's gonna be ghosts, or is it some kind of just mutations of people. It is set in 2017, it looks like, from a date that is shown on the VHS that you end up finding, which would put it farther past any of the other previous Resident Evil games. But at the same time, this could be a complete reboot to the entire idea of Resident Evil. There is some small stuff in there that implicates that you're still in the classic Resident Evil universe, but with no characters, no idea of story, and no nothing. We basically have this first-person perspective, and we're not even sure if this is how the gameplay is truly going to end up being once the actual game launches, because they didn't really show anything other than this trailer. But from the options menu inside of the demo, it definitely seems like this is what they're going with. And yes, it's not third person. It is not classic Resident Evil. It is first person, which is very different. It is very much inspired by PT, but I am willing to give it a chance, and I really did end up enjoying this demo. Like I said, I wouldn't go out of your way to check it out, but if you can watch some footage, there's plenty, I'm sure, playthroughs at this point. You know how YouTube is, there's probably millions of them already, put up by all the big names. But either way, as a Resident Evil fan, I'm actually willing to give this a shot. I know many Resident Evil fans are complaining that this is not what they were expecting, not what they wanted, and as a longtime fan, though, I'm willing to give this a shot. So anyway, I very much enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed kind of the footage here of it, as I'm sure there's a good amount pretty much shown throughout the multiple playthroughs I ended up doing. I want to jump back in. I want to watch some other people mess with it, read some more things, and intrigued if everything in the demo, if it is as in-depth as we are hoping the demo itself ends up being, that we can find use for these special items and find more alternate endings and maybe find a potential good ending or some other hidden Easter eggs amongst it, or is it just this and the extra stuff is just like, you know, red herrings, that there isn't something actually there. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and of course, I hope you enjoy.